Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Elena.
And I'm Björn.
And we are Viking Age reenactors and living historians here to talk with you about your favorite Viking shows. No, leave.
Dude, for real, poor Leaf.
I think my heart just broke, guys.
He just wants to be a good dad to him.
What?
Ruined it. Oof. Oh, I thought it was Floki.
ガキはこれだから参るぜ。お前どう生きるつもりだ。
So after all of this time, Knute's the one that got him.
これから先。
I was gonna say, like, they still got him holding on to it. Like, nobody thought to pry that out of his little hand. There you go.
Yeah, there it goes.
So sad that's his dad's knife. For anybody who missed all the other 23 episodes, here you go.
Quick catch up.
Quick catch up. Here you go. We've made it. We're doing it. Season finale of Vinland Saga.
I really like that wrap up.
That was great.
It definitely answered questions that we just had right before watching it.
Right?
Will King Sven die? Yes. It makes sense the way that they did it. Sven was king for such a short amount of time in England and died so suddenly, it seems, that this was like the perfect way to do it. It's just, he is now the king, and that was it. Guys, after all of this time, after 24 episodes, or I guess 23-ish episodes of watching Thorfinn follow Askeladd into battles and through life and everything else just so that he can get that duel where he finally wins and then Canute kills him.
I expected as much to happen. I didn't know how he was gonna die or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but I half expected him to just never get the opportunity to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, have that just be taken away from him entirely.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think to a certain extent it was kind of bound to happen this way because even in those final dying moments, Thorfinn is there basically being like, we have to go, as if he still expects Askeladd to continue living on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he would have ever accepted, like, to a certain degree, I almost feel like all of the duels that they've had this season, just the two of them, I feel like Thorfinn was kind of holding out. I feel like he never would have actually killed him himself.
Yeah, I mean, that especially, but I mean, also considering, like, they've literally spent, like, 11 years together.
Mm-hmm.
He's seen him do so much in 11 years, like, it's gotten to the point where, one, I don't know if he's, you know, like they obviously said, I don't know if he's ever thought of a life without Askeladd. And also, he's seen Askeladd get out of every single ridiculously messy, tough, close call situation ever, especially all considering the last, like, year alone. He's always known Askeladd to, like, never give up and never have, like, never be on the losing side or always have the upper hand of everybody. So it's like, it's incredible to even, like, as he has, like, a death wound, as he's, like, stabbed in the heart, like, for him to still kind of expect him to get up and be able to, like, get out of there with him. And, like, the slow realization and, like, repetitive denial that, like, he's dying. No, he can't die because I didn't kill him. That's not possible. Come on, you gotta get up. You can't die. You're not dying. You're fine. Get up. And I think it's something that we didn't even discuss either of just the idea of Thorfinn having a life outside of revenge. Mm-hmm. You know, he hasn't given anything else a second thought, so he was completely consumed by that. And regardless of even if he killed Askeladd or if Askeladd died in this case, regardless, the aftermath, Askeladd dies somehow. Doesn't matter how. And Thorfinn's left. Now what? You know, like, that was never even a conscious thought.
He literally left his family. We don't even know what happened to his family after he left.
Yeah.
And Leif was kind of there at the end of the season, trying to pull him out of that a little bit. And
yeah, he got so close.
I hope we see more of Leif in season 2.
Yeah, but ultimately, even that hesitation might have saved him, because just that moment's lag where he got onto the boat ship, with with Leif, and was like ready to kind of relax and take off and go from there. And then he saw the bird. Leif pulled him out of his stupor, out of that mentality, that downward spiral that he was in, long enough to delay it so that he couldn't get that killing blow. And like I was saying on my point, ultimately kind of saving him, because it kept him from being Ashlad's death blow.
Yeah, exactly.
And it allowed him to kind of come to that realization with Ashlad's dying words of like, what else is your life about, dude? Like, live your life.
Since we're talking about Ashlad's death and what that means for Thorfinn moving forward, so first of all, as crazy as that is, you know, Thorfinn's life purpose and everything has just been obliterated. It does open him up in season 2 to move forward with his life and find a new life's purpose. And I do believe that now that he's seen that Leif is alive and he knows where he is, essentially, unless he just sails off on his boat by himself in the interim, which I don't really see happening, but I guess we'll figure it out. I think that eventually he is going to throw his lot behind going to Vinland, which is, you know, Vinland Saga, and we're going to get into the main storyline. This entire first season, and honestly, after watching it, I appreciate it, because going into it, I fully expected to just be thrown into the Vinland Saga. You know, we're following Thorfinn, and he's going to Vinland, and we're seeing what the sagas are all about. But this is more of just the coming of age story in this first season. It's sort of like the origin story of Thorfinn, and I do appreciate that, because we get to know him as a little kid, and what the story that they're telling with Thorfinn was never written in the sagas. That is just completely made up against the backdrop of very historically accurate England, essentially, as it were, and Denmark. So the history behind the main story that we're watching here is absolutely correct, but then we're also getting to know who Thorfinn is at the base of everything. So as we follow him into the second season, one of the things that I did kind of want to note here is we know him from the sagas, or at least the Thorfinn in the sagas that we know was an explorer. He was not a warrior. We never really read about him as a warrior. He was an explorer that went to Vinland and eventually did end up back in Iceland. So that's the Thorfinn that we know. And I kind of wonder if that is somewhere where they're going to take his character, where he realizes that maybe his father was right and a warrior does not need a sword, that whole thing that he's had in his head this entire time. But maybe he comes to realize that he doesn't necessarily need to be a warrior, and that's why he doesn't need a sword, and he just wants to go explore the world, and with knowledge he will change it. Or I don't know, I'm extrapolating a little bit, but
no, I like it.
But I do think that they're going to try and take that tact with the character, because so far they've done him as much justice as they can while coming up with a whole different backstory than we would think that he would have.
Yeah, and it really makes the story that much more impactful, and like gives a more in-depth reason for why he would go to Vinland. You know, given all of your options, why would you want to remove yourself even further from the world and go into the very, like, far-reaching realms of completely unexplored death, ultimately? Because, I mean, it's a very possibly a death sentence.
That's very
true.
true.
All said and done. It's not just like, oh, we're going to go and hang out in this new place, we're going to go on vacation. No. I think doing the first season this way is brilliant also to somebody who's just coming into this for like an anime and doesn't really have too much knowledge or information for the Viking Age, because this is a way to tie in, you know, the story of Vinland and the westward expansion, which is pretty popular in the Viking Age, but the Vinland sagas are very far removed from the rest of the Viking world.
They absolutely
They're incredibly isolationary. And so this allows you to kind of grab onto that story, like that whole like westward expansion, you know, exploratory new world kind of ideology, but also ties it back to the heart of the Norse world. It ties it back into all the political intrigue and all the crazy busy shit that was going on in Denmark and Norway and Sweden. I guess Sweden, sure, we'll mention them there too. In the heart of it. So it gives you kind of both aspects of it and shows you kind of why somebody might choose to leave that, because it's a shitty life sometimes, and you get tired of it. And I think that's like just brilliant in terms of just storytelling as well. I've spent episodes talking about how much I love the story writing.
I think that is absolutely a very good point, because when you read the Vinland Sagas, first of all, there's 2 Vinland Sagas. They're written
they're basically the same story.
They're the same story. They're written by different authors, and they have different. They have differences between them, but the main gist of it's sort of like reading a book and then watching a series. Like, they get you to the same point, but just in different ways, I guess. One is shorter than the other. It's but you're basically reading the same story, just in one version of it certain characters get more of a weight put on them. It's been theorized that the reason behind it is because the authors of the stories had familial ties, or at least one of the authors of the stories had familial ties to some of these characters. So they were trying to kind of prop them up and make them look more important and enticing. Like Leif and his sister, basically, kind of making them more of central figures, whereas the other story was just very much more bare bones,
exactly,
in that respect.
Exactly.
Regardless of which one you read, there is very much that aspect to it where you do read a little bit about them traveling to Norway or traveling to Greenland and then going off to Vinland and having their adventures there, but you don't really get the gist and understand about what is happening in England and in Norway and in Denmark during those days. Like, they kind of touch bases with kings here and there. Like, they go and see a king, and the king tells them to go to Greenland and preach Christianity there, and all, like, there's a couple of like little touch bases there, but you don't really get a good sense of what actually is happening on a grander scale.
Exactly. Like, there's mention of it, and there's like missionary expeditions, or there's like trade and commerce between. But like beyond that, there's really not much detail or any fundamental understanding of like Nordic society. I do just also want to quickly talk about one point that kind of came up as we were talking, but since we were talking a little bit about more of like the symbolic things that we saw in the episode, I made a quick joke about it, but I really did like the moment when Thorfinn like let go of the knife, because first off, it wasn't like pulled from him. He didn't drop it. It was almost like an intentional letting go. Right. Like his hand, like nobody was like pulling it out of his hand or anything. Nobody was like prying his fingers open. It just fell out of his hand. And like that whole ending segment with Askeladd's dying words was essentially like trying to inspire him, especially with Leif as well beforehand. But it was almost like trying to kind of inspire and show him the value of letting go. And like not living in the past, because living in the past is a way that you're just gonna bog down and stick with those old terrible habits that put you into a downward spiral and ultimately kind of lead to your demise, because you dwell on it and it just beats you up and you're constantly living in like this negative space. And so I really like that moment where he lets go of his dad's knife, of Thor's knife, which is his only keepsake of his dad that he has. It's the thing that he's carried on him since his death, when he first learned about being a warrior and stuff. And we got a quick run through of like his entire life, basically, from like start to present. And then like once it hits down to the ground, boom, that's gone, and we're just like flooded with all this imagery and all this these beautiful scenes of what's to come. And I think that's a really telling little moment, because as soon as he's able to like let go of his past and drop that shit, he opens himself up to being able to like live his own life and like experience good things and like have a future. It's
very symbolic of even the thing that we hear of when you die, your life flashes before your eyes, and that is his the life that he's lived up until now. Like that's that death of that past, essentially.
Right.
And once that's gone, then he's free to sail the seas and explore these new lands and go see all this new stuff, basically.
Right. Maybe Canute's gonna outlaw Thorfinn. That's brilliant and political. That's game in the game. That's brilliant.
Yeah, we don't really know Thorfinn as an outlaw from the sagas, but like it could have been a thing. I mean, he lands in Greenland and then picks up his crew there and then goes off to Vinland. Yeah,
I mean, we don't know him as an outlaw, but we also don't know any of his backstory either. So it's kind of like free play.
we know just like a tiny bit. Yeah, I mean, if he was an outlaw, we don't know from the sagas, but it could still very much be true.
Thank you so much for sticking around and watching the show with us. It was a ton of fun. It was a great 3 months. We really enjoyed it. Thank you all for being here and being a part of what we do.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos, and we'll see you in the next one.